Welcome and good morning. Today is Father's Day, June 21st, 2020. We are thrilled to have Tom Jolly, the print editor of the New York Times, as our guest on the New York Times Read Along. Please hit share. We're live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Please share. Please like it. Please retweet it. Please mention your friends, tag your friends to make sure they watch. For everyone watching on repeat, thank you for catching the show, even after the fact. Remember, if you are watching this show, particularly on Facebook, click on the actual video. You might be watching a share. You might be watching it in your feed. Click play on the video. So if you make a comment, we will see it. Again, we are live every Sunday from 8:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time with the New York Times Read Along. Shri has been hosting the show for 5 years. And without further ado, let's get going with today's show. Shri, how are you doing today?
Happy Father's Day, Neil.
Happy Father's Day to you, too. Where are you? We don't have a view of New York. What's going on?
That's right. Our family, my wife Rupa and our twins and our dog, all moved to a secret location. Actually, we're on Fire Island, where we come every summer. We've had you down with us as well, but we're here for a week, and we're just so grateful to have this opportunity to have a little more room and a little more beach in our lives.
Great. And we already have people checking in. I think some people actually commented, but when the post first went live, when we scheduled it, there's my mom saying she's looking forward to the interview with Tom Jolly. She enjoyed our conversation with Tom. Remember, last year we were at his house in New Jersey at his kitchen table. Definitely a life highlight. Anand Babu from Andhra Pradesh is joining us. We have Jonathan Borstein joining us from Union Square, of course. Ashok Sharma as well. And then our good friend Sunny Slaughter saying good morning and checking in. Happy Father's Day. We'll be talking a little bit more about Father's Day a little bit later. And here's my mom watching the live show. Her earlier comment was before we had started, joining from Hastings on Hudson. Deborah Kerr is joining us. Rahadyan. We have Diane Stefani as well. Sujana Chandrasekhar. And from LinkedIn, we have Patricia Freudenberg, one of our regulars, and Mariel Holman Barnes joining us as well from Kansas City. So we already have a great audience, and people are continuing to join. What I'd like to do first, Shri, is to bring on our producers to introduce them to our audience. So I'll first bring in Paula Kiger and then Steve Taylor. As folks know, it takes a village to produce the show, and we have a great village behind us. We have Paula Kiger supporting the show on Facebook, dropping in links, engaging with the audience, providing context, which is always important. And we have Steve Taylor doing the same on LinkedIn and engaging with folks there. So thank you to Paula and Steve for all the great work that you do. It really does. It's something special that we do with our live streams, engaging with the audience. Too many people just put up a camera and start talking, and they don't have anyone else providing context or engaging with the audience. So thank you for making this show what it is. We also have
guys. Really appreciate it.
Julia Weeks and Carla Baranauckas are also part of our production team, but they couldn't make it today. But thank you, Julia and Paula. With that, we'll let you get back to Facebook and LinkedIn, Paula and Steve. And then what I'd also like to do, Shri, we always have a couple of bills to pay. So let's acknowledge some of our sponsors as soon as we can. Let's start with Muckrack. You've been doing a lot of work. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about this course that you've done with them, right?
Yeah, this is the Muckrack Academy free Fundamentals of Social Media course. It's already live, and you can find it at mrac.co/social. 4,000 people are taking this class. It's free and available to anyone of any background, any age group, and any level of experience. It's about a couple of hours of work, but you'll learn a lot, I promise. I learned a lot putting it together. Look at mrac.co/social, mrac.co/social, free fundamentals of social media certification course, and you get a certificate at the end of it and a line for your LinkedIn, mrac.co/social.
And Shri, how many people have already signed up for that course?
More than 4,000 people around the world,
which is incredible. So we'll go on. We have a couple other sponsors we want to recognize. The first one that I'll recognize is Magic Bus USA. Magic Bus imagines a world where children break out of poverty and lead fulfilling, rewarding lives, contributing to their community and to the world around them. As you can see, 7 out of 10 adolescents do not have a higher secondary qualification. 6 out of 10 youth do not have the soft skills necessary for employment, and 3 out of 10 girls are married before they reach the age of 18. This is in India. Magic Bus has a presence around the world in various communities, but this sponsorship is from Magic Bus USA. In addition to Muckrack and Magic Bus USA, we also have support from Strategy Focus Group. Strategy Focus Group is a global team of human capital strategists committed to helping organizations solve people issues within your organization. They do that by working alongside you to solve your toughest problems and helping you capture your greatest opportunities. Thank you to Greg Gallant and Mike Schneider from Muckrack and Pragya Haldapur from Magic Bus USA and Ron Thomas from Strategy Focus Group. If you're interested in being a sponsor, please contact Shri Srinivasan, shri@shri.net, or myself, Neil Parekh, neil@neilparekh.org, and we would love to give you more information. We also want you to learn more about our sponsors. They have some great information, and we have links to their websites. You can check them out at readalong.link/muckrack, readalong.link/magicbususa, or readalong.link/strategy focus group. Please feel free to follow those links and learn more about the great work that they do. So with that, Shri, we have something special going on today, right?
Yeah, we did Father's Day, and that's our day, but also the day for us to honor our fathers and the father figures in our lives. And so we've put together a special promo that will run today on 2 of our shows, the show happening right now, the Sunday New York Times Read Along, and then every evening when we do our COVID show, we just hit 100 episodes of the COVID show, and tonight at 9 p.m. So if you haven't participated in this yet, you can, in the next few hours, send us a photo of a role model in your life, a male role model, and we will include him in our Father's Day tribute in the evening. But we have 27 fathers and father figures we're going to be honoring today. And we're going to start with just doing a couple in the morning, right now, and then we'll do the rest at the end of the show after our guest leaves. So let's show that link again, digimentors.link/Father's Day, digimentors.link/Father's Day, and you will see how we're about to honor our fathers right now.
Absolutely. And what we want to do is to encourage people, if you do want to participate for the evening show, please submit your item by 5 p.m. Eastern Time, so we have a chance to prepare the card and get it loaded up. So Shri and I will kick things off. I'm going to recognize my father. My happy Father's Day to Prakash Parekh. And I'd like to thank him for giving me my love of the New York Times and for naming me after Neil Armstrong. You might not know that, but that's who my dad named me after. And as we do for all the fathers who passed away, may his memory be a blessing. He did pass away about 11 years ago now. And as Shri often tells the story, and he shares, and I'm happy to share it as well, my father was cremated, and his one of his last wishes was to be buried to be cremated rather with a Sunday print edition of the New York Times, and we of course were happy to honor that request. So thank you for letting me do that. Yeah, sometimes it catches me by surprise, Sri. I wasn't expecting a little bit of emotion, but we it's very real, and this is what we share with our New York Times read along family. We'll share.
You made us emotional there as well. And your father, who I knew better than I knew you for many years, he was a publisher in New York, and so he was involved with our South Asian Journalists Association. You were not in New York, so it wasn't easy for you to get involved, but he was, and he was a wonderful gentleman who helped young people like me understand our role, not just as journalists, but also as immigrants in this country, and where we go as a community. And so I'm very grateful to you for connecting us with his legacy here on the New York Times Read Along. For those of you who are new to the show, we've been doing this for 5 years. I've been reading the New York Times out loud for 5 years, the print edition. And then about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, Neil stepped up and started making this into a much more real show with the concrete timing and all this production. And that's made it really a global gathering every Sunday, and people all over the world, thousands of people watch every week. And that's the reason we're able to get amazing guests like we've had all these years, and who we have today. Tom Jolly, the print editor of the New York Times, standing by. He's going to join us in just a minute. Everyone, please follow him, Tom Jolly, on Twitter, @Tom Jolly. We're going to do one more of the Father's Day greetings right now.
Absolutely. And I want to run through a few of those comments. Rupa is sitting upstairs watching. So shout out to Rupa. And also I had Monica Parekh, my Devin Parekh's wife. He was a guest on the read along back in February. He's my cousin, my mom as well. And Mark had a nice comment as well. Thank you for sharing that, Mark. So Sri, here's your chance to say something about your father.
Oh, this is my dad. He's watching in Trivandrum and Kerala. I miss you, Acha. I'm sorry that we're not together at this moment, but happy Father's Day from both me and my brother, Srikant Srinivasan, who's watching in Dubai, and happy Father's Day from everybody in our family, including my twins, Durga and Krishna, and my wife, Rupa. They're all watching right now. And we just want to say we love you. Retired Ambassador T.P. Srinivasan, author of 7, 8, 9 books. It's hard to keep track. And the host of his own TV show that is a show on foreign affairs on the network AsiaNet, the largest Malayalam language network in the world. And so thank you, Neil, for helping us make this into something real again. And we're going to be doing a lot more of these. And then tonight, when we run the daily COVID-19 show with Sunday Night Positivity, my guests are my twin children are going to join us as their Father's Day gift to me is they agreed to be on my show. We've had children as young as 7 on the show talking, including Neil's daughter. Emily joined us on a view from the 7-year-olds, and we've had 9-year-olds, 11-year-olds, but the 17-year-olds, not so easy to get. But they're going to talk about what it's like to be under lockdown as a 17-year-old, as well as their thoughts on what's happening in the country and around the world from their point of view. So we hope you'll join us 9 p.m. Eastern, and we'll do many more of these cards in a little bit. People have given us money to celebrate their fathers and father figures, and you can also still participate by going to digimentors.link/Father's Day, and we'll do the rest tonight, and it'll be really cool to have all these fathers celebrated in this manner. And now I think we're ready to get started. I am beyond excited to have Tom Jolly with us. Tom is the print editor of the New York Times. First of all, just that title, but also Tom, as you will hear in just a minute, is an amazing character on his own. He is a longtime newspaper journalist, but has so many interests beyond just the news. And he is shaping the way people see a product that many people have written off the print edition of the New York Times. You're going to hear about its success, about some of the adventures, misadventures, all of that comes with being in the journalism world today. But you are in for a real treat for the next hour plus. So please welcome Tom Jolly.
There he is.
Good morning. Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day, Tom. Thank you for joining us. And I just want to take a quick moment and just really explain to people how close a friend you are to the show and to both Shri and I in terms of the support you've given us, constant emails back and forth, giving us a heads up on special projects, special sections. And that session we did with you at your home last year in New Jersey is still an incredible highlight for us to be able to come to your house, to lay the paper on your kitchen table and to walk through it, to have your daughter with us. Thank you so much for that. I really wanted to take that privilege to share that with everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a highlight for us, and Sawyer enjoyed it immensely and was talking about it with me yesterday, in fact. But she decided not to wake up for this one.
Yeah, it is early. It is early, and there were no bagels.
That's right.
And the bagels came from Carla Baranauckas, former copy chief of the New York Times, the national copy chief. She came with us, brought bagels. But again, just to imagine that we were reading the New York Times at the home of the print editor of the New York Times, eating bagels. The way millions of people read the New York Times is sitting at their kitchen table, reading the paper and other newspapers around the world. We are not just celebrating the New York Times. We're celebrating journalism, facts, the importance of getting things right, and the amazing effort that people put in every day around the world. And we're at a time where we're under assault in many ways. People are calling out journalists in ways that they shouldn't, starting where we've been called the enemy of the people. And that is just, this show is a way for us to push back against that narrative. So let's get started.
Absolutely.
And let's say hi to Tom.
Before you do, Shri, I just want to mention, Tom, if you can pass on to Sawyer, she does have a fan club from that first show, and several of our colleagues and loyal watchers want to wish her the best. So please make sure.
I definitely will do that. And I will say that Neil's story about his father's wanting to be buried with the New York Times. I mean, my gosh, if that doesn't add weight to what we do, and nothing does, that means that's so meaningful.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. I'll leave the show to you and Shri, and we'll check back in later.
But before you go, you want to talk about what you're wearing, and then Tom can comment also about what you're wearing.
Absolutely. I'm happy to step back a little bit, even though you might not be able to see a little bit of a stain, but there's my Yankee pinstripes. And we'll share that a little bit later. I grew up a Yankee fan. This is not something I got from my father. And I was always chagrined that my father didn't have a box of baseball cards to hand to me like my other friends' fathers did. But I grew up a Yankees fan. I like to say 20 minutes from Yankee Stadium in Hastings-on-Hudson, New York. And I'm very proud that I've passed on that love of the Yankees to my daughter. And we've gone to a Yankee Stadium, did a tour, went to a game. She's already rebelling at 7 and joking that she's not a Yankee fan. But I think at heart, I think I'm breaking through. So I actually wore the jersey intentionally today because of that bond and something that I feel very strongly about. When you pass down that love of a team of any sport from father to a child, a son or daughter, it means a lot. Tom, your thoughts on baseball?
Well, we were talking a little bit earlier about how it's such a fabric of America, right? It's the summer and baseball, and I hadn't really missed it until just the last couple of weeks. Really, I think it wasn't there. It was gone for the winter, and it just never came back. Really, we had that little brief flurry of spring training, excitement, but that vanished pretty quickly. And I sure hope it's back. I mean, frankly, it's very difficult to know whether sports are going to come back this year at all. I mean, I was just reading this morning actually about some NFL players raising that question. You know, it's been assumed that pro football was going to come back, but now NFL players are starting to say, hey, you know, there's the few Cowboys players came down with COVID, and so it's we're all in uncharted territory, aren't we?
And both the Yankees and the Phillies spring training facilities in Florida have had a number of cases of coronavirus crop up among their players and their staff. You know, I personally, actually, there's so many issues involved in terms of contracts and the money involved. It's a business at the end of the day, but I think health has to be paramount. I don't know that I'm in favor of a season that's going to put people at risk, and they're going to have to work through the economics of it all, certainly. And I know it means a lot, you know, even for players to come play for a shortened season and risk injury or risk illness. It's a lot to ask of people. So we'll wait to see how that works out. But Sri, thanks for the prompt about the jersey, and looking forward to a great conversation, Tom. Thanks again.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Neil. And Tom, thank you again. Welcome to the New York Times Read Along, your second time here. And also a big hello to everyone watching from Tom's Twitter feed. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And please share right now as we talk to Tom Jolly what it's like to be at the New York Times right now. First question we always ask Tom is, how are you doing? How's the family? How are you getting through the lockdown with everything that's going on?
We're all doing well. We're, we've stayed home. We've followed the guidelines, and we're getting plenty of things delivered, and thankfully everyone stayed healthy. The first couple of weeks back so long ago were a little stressful just because of the adjustment to working from home, and the demands of working. Of work, but also the fact that you never leave work in a sense, right? And so that getting adjusted to that idea was a challenge, and I've continued to talk to our staff about this because everybody is experiencing it differently. If you're, as I am, fortunate enough to live in a home in a New Jersey suburb, I have a yard and I can get out and not interact with, worry about social distancing. But folks, many of our folks live in small apartments in Brooklyn and Manhattan and elsewhere, and it's a lot more difficult for them to, they're kind of claustrophobic at times and very isolated personally, especially if they're single. So it's been a challenge, but I'm very proud of how the whole team and the whole company has responded to the challenge.
Here's a comment from my wife, Rupa, who says, I'm so happy to walk to the store to pick up the paper this morning. Something special about feeling the print on my fingertips. Let's start there. First of all, thank you to Rupa for going out and getting the paper, even here on Fire Island. It arrived at 8 a.m.
Right.
What does it mean to you to be the print editor of the New York Times? We'll talk about what the job is, but what does it mean for you at heart to be running the print edition of the paper?
It's, well, first of all, obviously it's a great honor. It's just a fantastic opportunity. I have so many great colleagues, and the era that we're in, where, as you mentioned, there still are people who are questioning, how long will print continue. The fact that the Times leadership has been open to new ideas about how to present things in print, being bolder about certain things, doing special sections that are journalistically sound, and displaying the fantastic photography that we have in a way that you can't ever really show, certainly not on your phone. You'd have to have a very big a computer screen to match what you can do with some of the best photos in print. And the fact that, one of the things that remains a distinction from the digital report is that you leaf through the paper, you get a sense of completing whether you read everything or not, if you look through all the pages, you have a sense of completing your task, essentially, of you feel like you've got a full idea of what was in the New York Times. That's impossible on the digital report because it's an infinite report, right? There is no end. So yeah, it's a great honor, great responsibility, because it's an important part of the New York Times, and our team, takes it extremely seriously to uphold the standards at a time when we have far fewer people involved in producing the newspaper directly, and so many other presentations of our report: video, digital, mobile, podcast, et cetera, et cetera. Netflix, we're doing things. Hulu, we're doing TV shows. So it's been an incredible time to be at the Times, and a great, as I said, an honor for me to be leading the print report.
Here's Stefan saying, when I was a kid growing up in Greenwich Village, I used to put together the Sunday paper section by section in the store I worked at, eating bagels too, of course. Then he went on to work at the New York Times for 20 years and now works with me on our Digimentors team. So this is that so many people have that experience of being a paper boy or paper girl at somewhere in the world where they were doing that kind of work. Let's step back a little bit and talk about the New York Times. We've been told it's the failing New York Times. So tell us a little bit about how failing it really is.
Well, obviously that's not true. Our subscription numbers are higher than they've ever been, including digital and print together. The digital subscriptions obviously are the largest number because they go around the globe. The unfortunate fact that we've been going through an incredible news cycle for most of 2020, really for several years, but particularly this year, first with the COVID and then with the protests. That sort of thing obviously drives interest in our news reports, but you got to do a good job of presenting the news and covering that news, and it's gratifying that people are responding by subscribing both to the digital report and to the newspaper. One of the oddities of the pandemic has been that as people have been at home, they've realized that many people have expanded from just the weekend only subscription to 7 day a week because they're home now. They aren't commuting first thing weekdays and whatnot. So we've seen a little bit of a lift on our print subscriptions as well.
And you're doing so much to make the print edition more relevant to folks. And here it is, the Sunday New York Times, laid out here on Fire Island as we look at all of these sections. They're including sections that didn't exist on March 1st that now exist, and we'll talk about those. And hey, wouldn't you know it, there's a Yankee story right here. Yankees bench 2 in Copa brawl. Beck repays another 100G. We'll have to figure all of that, what that means. And here's the Times Magazine cover. And I'll have you walk through these in just a minute, but I wanted to point out that there's so much material here and is produced by hundreds of journalists and others. So can you talk a little bit about the numbers, if you have them off the top of your head, rough numbers of the employment situation with the Times?
I believe, yes. I believe we have 1,700 journalists at the Times right now, which is I think the largest number ever. It's been that number for a year or so. Of course, we are doing more journalism than ever. As I mentioned before, we have a team that does videos. The video investigative team won a Pulitzer this year for their work last year. We have a huge team of photographers. Not many newspapers have full-time photographers anymore. Even magazines, they rely on freelance or stock photography. We have a podcast team. We have a television team that produces the weekly television show and has expanded into some documentaries as well. So the numbers are big in terms of overall journalists, and they're doing many things. The heart of it all, of course, is the reporting, and our reporter staff is the bulk of represents. I don't know the percentage, but more than 50%, probably close to 70% of our staff is reporting staff.
Thank you. My dad's watching in Carla. He just joined us. And I love this comment from Steve Taylor, who's talking about how he loved the print newspapers so much as a kid that he couldn't wait until his arms got longer so he could hold the entire paper open like an adult. And of course, adults have their own trouble with the newspaper. And there is a specific way in which the New York Times recommends folding the paper on the subway. And I don't know if you still do that. Is that still a thing?
Well, yeah, sure. If people are riding the subway anymore, but yeah, that's still a talent if you've got the skill to fold it into horizontal quarters. Basically, is what
you haven't had to do that in a while, Tom. Do you want to just show us? Let's see how good you are.
All right. Let's see. So I would do this. And I would do this. And then you probably want to do this. And then you can be in very tight quarters and read your stories.
That looks like the form factor of a large phone or an iPad, isn't it?
That's right.
All right, let's look at the paper. Tell us, I'll just hold up different sections and then you can just tell me what we're looking at. You can see it on the screen. So just tell me what we're looking at, a little bit of background on each section and how it's put together. Just quick, because we've got to look at so many of them. Okay,
sure. Well, the what you're showing there is obviously the front page, and that section is the most requires the most work, especially on a Saturday when we have editions that close at noon, 4 p.m., 8 p.m., and 11:30 p.m., and sometimes 12:30 p.m. Yesterday was a particularly busy day for our team because the lead story you see there, the backlash grows after president fires prosecutor, that news started developing on Friday night. In fact, we had a stop the presses moment, a rare stop the presses moment Friday night in order to get that news in to the Saturday paper. And then on Saturday, President Trump actually fired the prosecutor, and that became our lead story for the noon edition. And there were all kinds of other, there was stuff going on in Tulsa all day long, including with the photo at the top of the page on President Trump's rally that started at a little bit after 8 p.m. And that became the photo presentation for the 11:30 edition, which makes about, I think it represents about 25% of our papers for Sunday. So folks were busy all day long yesterday. Some Saturdays are a little quiet. Some Saturdays like that are extraordinarily hectic.
And here we're seeing, and just for people who haven't seen a print paper in a long time or haven't thought about it, the lead story is on the right always. I mean, in this case, it's clear because there's a big photo here and your eyes are drawn here. But sometimes you'll have copy that goes all the way to the top or a headline at the top, but the lead story is on the right.
Correct. That's right.
And then
we always try. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say we always try on Sunday to have what we call we call it a heave because it's a long story, but an enterprise or investigative story that sort of anchors the paper because we figure it's a good day for. Well, first of all, as it's the most expensive paper, and and it's our highest circulated paper, so we want to give those readers our best work and the work of the greatest value. And so you see under the picture, the 3-column headline is about how the culture wars have reached churches and how they've affected parishes and divided parishes and divided individual church congregations.
Okay, sorry, I have breaking news over here. My twins have shown up with breakfast, and our dog is also here. Look at this. No, this is pretty amazing. Thank you, Krishna, Durga, Rupa, and thank you, Tara, as well. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, yeah, this is all on camera because they didn't wake up early enough to give it to me on camera. So off camera. Thank you, Tom, for letting us interrupt this with breaking news over here. And look at the spread now on the paper. And Tom, souffled eggs, right? Souffled eggs. Wow, that's cloud eggs. They're called. Okay, we'll say thank you, guys, and take your. All right. Thank you, Tom. As we're looking at this breakfast, this is almost as good as eating bagels at your place with the New York Times. But this is what the kids made this morning, which is pretty awesome.
Almost as good for you, but not for me.
And Paula says priorities. That's right. Father's Day priorities. Thank you. You used a term I'd not heard before. So this big story that you try to do, you call it the heave?
Yeah, it's not an official term. It just means it's a long story. And as you, if you open to the jump page, you'll see that it's a two-page presentation inside with large photography and hopefully what would be for readers a very readable, inviting.
This is amazing. This is also called a double truck.
That's right. Yeah, and the photo going across the center of it is called a gutter, and the photo going across there is called a gutter bleed or a gutter butt. Because it's going across two pages, and so challenge for the press room because they've got to line up the plates just right to make the photo work.
And it's called a gutter bleed because it goes over the two pages, right? That's
Correct.
What that is.
Correct.
And then what is it? How is it a gutter without the bleed? What is that called? Or what does that look like?
A gutter is just the seam, I guess I'll call it, down the center between the two pages.
Got it.
Right.
Makes sense. Yeah, and this is about the culture wars and what's happening in various churches. So look forward to seeing that. This is all cold to me. I'm reading this all. One of the things that's changed, Tom, because of the read along, is that I no longer read the paper on Saturday the way I used to because I want to be fresh on Sunday as I'm reading it with our guests, and that's part of the ritual, right? You deliver half the Saturday paper on Sunday. What is the history of that, and what impact has that had on people's ability to read and understand the news?
So we do that only in New York, by the way, on the New York market. You're right. We print. I don't know. Maybe people aren't aware that we print the weekly sections, most of the weekly sections, in advance. The presses can only print so many pages per day or per press run. So in order to give you sections, like metropolitan and real estate and travel, that section is now suspended temporarily, but sections like that, we print those during the week. And of course, one reason we can do that is that those sections are not driven by news per se. They have features and kind of advice stories and that kind of thing. And they're almost weekly magazines in a sense. So we publish those in advance. And just for the sake of making delivery easier in the New York area, those sections are delivered to home subscribers on Saturday, and then you get the rest of the Sunday paper on Sunday. Around the country, you get all those sections at once.
Got it. And so I'm now like a reader outside of New York, reading it in that sense. So we'll come back to the front page. Let's skip around, see what else we have here. What's going on? Tell us about the magazine.
Well, like you, I haven't gotten all the way through the paper yet myself, but the magazine is another example of something that is published in advance. They have an even longer lead time. So they're because one of the things we have to do for the magazine is to put it on trucks and ship it we print the magazine and a couple other sections in New York, and then ship them to sites around the country, and then those are distributed. And as Stefan was talking about earlier, people are still putting the paper together section by section in other parts of the country, and even here in this area, putting inserts, stuffing inserts into the paper and whatnot. And so that magazine is put together in advance. Obviously, they're as topical as they can be. As you see, the subject this week is a deep dive into the issue around policing and what some people think ideas about how policing can improve and change.
Let's talk about the Sunday business section, which is been for several months now, maybe more than a year. You've put in a lot of effort on design and color.
Correct. Right. Ellen Parekh is our business editor, and when she came in, she wanted to put, she felt like there was an opportunity to really do that with the Sunday business section, kind of deliver as I said earlier, a big story for the business section, as just along the same lines as we think about for the front page, and make it sort of the showpiece for business coverage each week. And in line with that, giving it dramatic presentation goes hand in hand with kind of trying to emphasize the thinking behind the story of the week.
My dad said that New York Times had tried out a talking weekly edition once. Is that a regular feature? I guess there was some kind of audio thing, but now the New York Times does so much audio, so much video. They are producing a true multimedia production house, and they're doing that, which is pretty cool. Linda asks, do you know what the weight of the heaviest Sunday edition was or has ever been?
Yes. Well, this came up not long ago because we had a very large section, a very large paper a few weeks ago. I believe the heaviest, and it's actually in the Guinness Book of World Records as the heaviest single day newspaper. It was something like 12 or 13 pounds and, maybe 3, 4, or 5 inches thick. We actually had a paper that rivaled that not too long ago. Each September, the first Sunday after Labor Day usually is our fall preview from Arts and Leisure, which includes a look at all the television, movies, everything that's coming in the fall, which is typically a big time for all the cultural rollouts. And that's a 3-section Arts and Leisure presentation that adds to the thickness of the paper. And often there's a T magazine in that edition as well. So and that T magazine is an enormous one because it's also the fall fashion preview. So those are sort of typically our biggest papers. That's first Sunday, or excuse me, the second and third Sunday of September.
I want to say, while my father's still watching, that I remember arriving in America, and the second week that we were here, I was 9 years old, and there was this thump outside our house, maybe the third or fourth day after we had moved in, and I opened up the door, and there's the New York Times, giant Sunday edition, and that's where I fell in love with the Sunday New York Times. And I know so many people have stories like that, so I'm very grateful to my father for encouraging that love of the New York Times. Let's keep going. Lots of comments coming in from all over. Patricia says, love the print because it gives a feeling of connection to on a physical level, and also additional perk like summary booklets that you miss out on digital. Although I still love the easy access of reading the New York Times online. And that, before we just get to the Sunday review, this is an effort from you all to be relevant in the lives of your print subscribers, right? Like, you want to give them things that you won't get online to justify the expense.
Correct. Right. And I mean, I think that one of the things we've, so to back up a little bit, when we first wanted to expand and realized we were, I think everybody knows that at some point, the A.G. Sulzberger, in fact, who was an editor at the time, now is the publisher, put together the innovation report. And one of the conclusions of that report was that we were behind as a digital news organization, and we needed to take dramatic steps to get better at that. And so for a time after that, there was a sort of feeling of competition or rivalry between digital and print. And one of the things that we've really come to realize is that all of these platforms, if you want to call them that, have their strengths, and they complement one another. And if you're a subscriber to the Times, a print subscriber, you have access to all of it. You have access to the newspaper, you have access to the digital report, all the videos and whatnot that are online. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is that the paper still can do things better than the digital report can, even as the digital report can do things better than the paper can, as in presenting videos and moving objects and whatnot that obviously print can't do. But print can provide an opportunity to, look at things in, as I described before, in terms of pictures. You can take your time. If you're reading a long digital story and you stop reading it on your phone, so a lot of times it's really hard to come back to it a few hours later and figure out where you were. Sometimes even hard to find the story. So you can lay something aside for later. But we can also do things with enormous graphics. With, a few weeks ago we did the when the nation reached 100,000 deaths from COVID-19, we did an entire front page and jump of 1,000 people, just little blurbs of those 1,000 people. And that was something that you could take your time and look at, and it made a powerful statement as the entire front page. But that's something that you could not really spend as much time with on the digital report, and kind of look around and find all these different elements. There you have it, right? And what that is our graphics. Some of our graphics editors were trying to come up with a different way. We've shown bar charts and all kinds of different representations of the increased death toll, and so Simone Landon was the person who came up with this, a graphics editor. She, among other people, were trying to come up with a way to capture the weight of 100,000 deaths in a different way, and particularly in a way that reflected the humanity of it. And so what they came up with was creating a tool that would search the obituary data around the country for people who had died of coronavirus, and just excerpt basically the name, age, town, and one sentence that kind of captured who they were. So you've got all kinds of interesting, just very human little stories. The one I remember sticking out was a gentleman who was in the I think Pennsylvania Voter Hall of Fame for having voted in every election since 1950 or something like that. And there's just all kinds of just nice little anecdotes about real people whose lives were taken by this disease.
How about Leo here, 98 in Seattle, preferred bolo ties to neckties, suspenders to belts. That captures him. We could read a long obituary about him, but we capture his kind of spirit with this one line. And I love that. This has been written about so much, the fact that you all did this. There was some controversy about you taking over the front page. Was this an editorial statement? What was your response to all of that, Tom?
Well, we felt like, the paper, one of the responsibilities of the paper is to reflect the moments of our history. And, none of us, unless you're there, I shouldn't say none, because there were a few who were alive in 1918, but it's an extraordinarily thankfully rare occasion to live through a pandemic. And certainly in this world we live in now, the news about it is, I saw in one of our stories today about the Trump rally, a couple of the people going to the rally said this is all a hoax. And we felt like it was important to, show people that indeed many, many lives have been affected and lost by this disease. And it was a moment. We were about to reach 100,000 deaths. And so we thought, yes, it's a statement. I don't think it's a political statement in any way. It's a statement of fact that this disease has cost us an enormous number of lives, as well as affected so many people's lives in other ways.
Thank you, Tom. I carried this paper with me to Fire Island, and I hope to keep it for a long time. The paper, even when you don't touch it, yellows, right? That's one of the things that happens with this.
Right,
and
right.
you forget that because we're tossing them, but I've kept this, and it's very meaningful and very special. Thank you for doing this. We have so many comments coming in from people, by the way, also complaints from some dads who are busy on Father's Day and are not allowed to hang around and watch a show like this because they have to be with their family. So they've asked why we're doing this today. Well, it is Father's Day. It is Sunday. And we thought that this would be a nice way to pay tribute to all fathers by bringing on a great dad in Tom Jolly. And this would be a moment for us to talk about our very special promotion that we're doing, and the money that we're raising. Half of it's going to a favorite charity of Tom Jolly. So let's bring on the card that we've put together that Tom sent us. And this is the sponsorship that we're doing. And you can still participate for the evening show, digimentors.link/Father's Day. And we'll send a greeting to a father figure in your life. It can be an uncle, male role model, grandfather, father, someone who may have passed on or still with us. Please send this. Please check out digimentors.link/Father's Day for that. And now, Tom, let's show what you have sent us. And this is a greeting for you. We asked you to send us a name of somebody you'd like to pay tribute to, and tell us who this is and what we're looking at.
That's my father and me. I'm the little one. He is 90 years old and doing very well in Pittsburgh. Just had knee replacement surgery last year. Like most of us, I think I learned some extraordinarily valuable lessons from him. I think the one that always sticks out to me is his saying as I was growing up, that if a job is worth doing, it's worth doing right. And put your all into what you're doing. If you're going to do something, make it worthwhile.
Wow.
And that stuck with me, and tried to pass that along to my kids as well.
And his name is also Tom.
His name is Tom. He is actually Thomas Daniel Jolly Jr., and I am Thomas Allen Jolly, so I don't have a third attached to my name, a different middle name. It's actually Thomas Jolly is I think there are something like 15 Thomas Jollies in the Jolly lineage. Everybody changing the middle name every once in a while to avoid, having too many numbers at the end of our names. But yeah, he's in Pittsburgh and like I said, doing well.
Well, God bless, 90 years old, and he taught you so many great lessons. But I love that whatever you do is worth doing well. My dad taught me that as well. So happy Father's Day to both Tom Jollies.
Indeed. Thank you.
All right, let's keep going. And folks, if you'd like to participate, you can still join us for the evening show, 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll be reading out all the cards. And later this morning, we'll read out all the cards that came in before our deadline for this morning. And then we'll read the rest in the evening. We have about 25 more to go. And we'll do that after we let Tom get back to his Father's Day. And let's look at some of the sections again. Here's Sunday Review. Your quick
before I go to that, sorry, before I go to that, I should backtrack a little, because I realized I sort of got off track from your question about new sections, and you were showing the at-home section.
And before we do that, actually, Tom, before we
Okay.
do that, can we tell
Sure.
people about the charity you picked? We asked you to pick a charity
Sure.
that we would send half the proceeds from these ads, and you picked one specific one.
Yes, it's called the Unusual Suspects. It's a theater group in Los Angeles that was formed after the Rodney King riots as a way to, in response to the riots and the realization that that the arts group in the Los Angeles area could do something positive. And one of the things, well, their main mission has been to reach out to kids in middle school and high school and even juvenile detention centers where the youth there may be disadvantaged in many ways in terms of not getting opportunities. So they created this theater group in 1993, and they teach how to write a play. They teach script writing, etc., and they put on performances. The kids write the plays, and the kids put on the performances. And we came into contact with it because my daughter Sawyer befriended Melissa Peterman, the actress who maybe is best known as from her role on the Reba show as Barbara Jean. And Melissa is involved in this group, and so we thought it would be a good opportunity to support the arts, and kind of I didn't even think about it until we were on the show today. But it's sort of it's also meaningful in this era of all the discussion about racial inequity and social inequity, and this is a group that has really sunk its teeth into trying to help address that.
Thank you for bringing them to our attention. It's the unusualsuspects.org is the website. People can take a look, and we'll be making a donation from all the proceeds that we're getting. Half of it will go to the Unusual Suspects, and what a great organization. And Tom, you're absolutely right about how this is connected to everything going on. We did a special segment of our daily program, and we talked about the U.S. prison system and how early everything starts and people not getting second chances or even a first chance sometimes. And I interviewed a gentleman who was in prison for 44 years. He went into prison in 1975 and got out something like in 2014. Imagine how much the world had changed, his life had changed, the world, his family had disappeared, all kinds of things. And no matter what you think of the guilt or non-guilt of anybody in prison, there is something wrong when America has 5% of the world's population and 25% of the incarcerated are here. All right, let's move on to talk about, you were going to talk about the at-home section, then we've got Sunday Review, we got Pride, we've got Arts and Leisure, book, so much, we're here for about a 4-hour show today, I think. But no, we're kidding. We got to do it in 30 minutes. So let's get
real
going.
quickly, I can tell you that At Home was created, it didn't take long to realize that as the pandemic was moving in that we were going to have to, first of all, the travel section was going to be challenged because people were not traveling. And our culture section was also deeply affected because Broadway shows were all canceled, postponed. Theater had stopped. Movie theaters were shut down, and people were locked at home. And so we started talking about what could we do to provide some sort of to address those changes in people's lives. And we were already doing stories that applied to living at home, different elements of that. And so we came up with Sam Sifton and Amy Vership, who's the travel editor, came up with with conversations with us about how could we create a section and address these things would give people activities to do at home. We've added a number of puzzles, not only to that section, but to the culture section. And we're really, this section is devoted to life at home. What just tips about recipes, cleaning, organizing things, all the kinds of things that you might want advice on about living at home after, many of us were spending more than half our lives not at home. And so, our expectation is that section is going to continue until probably at least the fall. We're trying to figure out when it makes sense to bring the travel section back. I think that a lot of the elements of the at-home section will continue to exist in some form, and perhaps in the culture section, perhaps in other sections. I think it's been greeted with enthusiasm by our subscribers, which is certainly something that we are grateful to see.
Excellent. I want to thank you for putting together, and you and Sam for putting together the 5 dishes to cook this week. I am blessed that we have 3 people in our family who love to cook, my twins and my wife. And so I'm only designated cook for 1 meal a week. And the last 5 weeks or so, I've cooked off of this recipe list. So I'm always grateful that I'm able to do that and have something fun as well. Let me ask you about ads. It used to be that when Abe Rosenthal and others started the multiple sections of the New York Times, part of it was based on the ability to have sponsored sections, right? And
right.
ads.
Sure.
And what is the ad situation like generally and specifically in this market with everything going on?
Well, it's no secret that the advertising market has collapsed in these past few months, and the Times is incredibly fortunate to have had leadership that saw that the subscription-based business was the future. They made that bet a few years ago when they started charging for the online subscriptions, and continued to increase the price of the paper accordingly. And we're now, when I first started, I think the rule of thumb used to be something like you wanted the newspaper to be 60% ads, and now I think it's completely it's not only reversed, but way less than 40% ads. And the hope is obviously that advertising will come back, and it has come back and is starting to come back as people are able to get out a little more. Obviously, there's no point in advertising a restaurant or a business that you can't go to at this point. But theaters and all those sorts of things were a big part of our advertising as well. Again, we expect a lot of that to come back, but we're fortunate, as I said, to be subscription based, and our readers are paying the bulk of the cost of doing what we do. Again, I give great credit to our leaders who came up with that model a few years ago, and we're very happy that it's succeeding.
Let's look at the Sunday Review. This is the story of the woman who forced the police to treat sexual assault as a crime, the rape kit's secret history. Sunday Review has undergone some name changes over the years, but this is the op-ed section of the Times. It also has the big Sunday editorial, right? That the unsigned editorial here as well, sometimes signed.
Yeah,
as we're seeing here.
Right. Yeah, the opinion pages have changed a lot. They're trying to be much more transparent about who's writing what. That story, by the way, I haven't quite finished it, but the story on the cover is a phenomenal story, really fascinating, about a woman who really came up with the idea for the rape kit and has sort of disappeared into anonymity because the police, the sergeant took credit for it, and the writer pursued, just sort of oddly stumbled into the story, the history of it, and came up with an amazing story.
And her name, the writer is Pagan Kennedy. I'm not sure that's pronunciation. That's one of the things that happens. We read all these bylines all these years. I've never had to say these words out loud.
Right.
And the woman who created the kit, Marty Goldberg, is the name. No, sorry, Marty Goddard is the name. Goddard is the name of the scientist who, I haven't read the story yet. I presume scientist who made that possible. And then talk a little bit. You were saying about this section of the opinion pages.
Well, they've just, they've tried to, as you said, there were a lot of, traditionally the editorials in the paper have been unsigned, voice of the paper kinds of editorials, and we still do those. And our opinion pages, they've attempted to be more, as I said, transparent, make it clear whose voice it's coming from, and if it's coming from the editorial board, exactly what that is, so people understand that it's a diverse group of people headed by the publisher, but consisting of a number of people who discuss an issue, and then the person among them who has sort of the expertise on the topic writes the piece.
I haven't read this yet, but I recommend everybody read this, because this is about what happened in Tulsa in 1921. A group of there was a mob that massacred a group of well-to-do African Americans. It was called the Black Wall Street, and that happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And for the president to pick this particular location for this on Juneteenth is especially egregious, on top of everything else that was going on. But I'm glad the Times is covering that here. And let's move on to another section. You pick. Which one would you like to tell us about?
Well, I can quickly mention that you've got your camera on the Pride section there, and that is an example of a special section that we do to sometimes they're representing days like Pride, events. Some days they're geared toward anniversaries, major anniversaries. We've in the past couple of years, we've had a number of 50-year anniversaries that have been worth reflecting on. Woodstock was one from last year. So we have a small team of print editors who are responsible for putting together some of these special sections like Pride. Some of the others come from my group as well. Sunday Styles devoted their issue this week to Juneteenth, the history. What is Juneteenth? It's a reflection on our society and who wrote the textbooks, but both the Tulsa massacre, really, that you mentioned in the opinion pages, and Juneteenth are examples of events that really were not well publicized or noted in our textbooks as we were learning American history. Those were not kinds of things that our history books focused on, so it's great to see that these things are getting attention now, and it's something that I think all of us could use the education about.
This is a fantastic issue. Look at so many things here. And we also have the social cues section. And one of the things we do is we read out one of the questions and we put our guest on the spot. There's no right or wrong answer because it's etiquette. So let me ask you this question. Eco-friendly gift or no gift? I was invited to a friend's baby shower that was canceled because of the pandemic. I'd like to send a gift, but I was disappointed to see his registry is full of conventional disposable diapers. I get that cloth diapers aren't for everyone, but my friend can afford disposable diapers that are biodegradable. What is the passive-aggressive? Would it be passive-aggressive to send eco-friendly disposable diapers, or should I buy something from the registry? Honestly, the alternative is to send nothing. I'm low-key outraged by people who ignore their basic moral responsibility to take care of the planet.
Well,
so over to you.
Yeah, I would not take the passive aggressive approach. I don't think that's a particularly helpful way to maintain a friendship. Perhaps there's other ways of making your point without making it through through a gift that's supposed to celebrate the birth of a child.
Well, what about also writing a letter to the New York Times, even if it's disguised? This is a sort of passive aggressive way if someone can figure out, right?
Yeah, it's almost more aggressive than passive, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, here's what Philip Galland says. Whoa, I was right with you until your outrage kicked in. Wouldn't it be more effective to send a box of eco-friendly diapers with a nice note about why you prefer them? A first-time mother-to-be may not have had given much thought to diapers. You're doing her and our planet a favor by explaining your position and keep the righteousness to a minimum. So I think you had a good overlap there. Again, no right or wrong answer, but I think you gave a great answer over here. Look at all this coverage, and the wedding section still big in the Times.
Definitely. And I think the wedding section is, well, I shouldn't say I think. The wedding section does reflect how the Times has evolved with our society and culture over the years. For a long time, same-sex weddings were not recognized. Hal Raines, I believe it was, instituted, began us publishing those, unless it was Bill Keller. Anyway, that happened in the early 2000s. And the wedding pages have also become, they've recognized that there are some really good stories around weddings and how relationships started. So instead of them all being the sort of cookie cutter, Jane Doe married Joe Blow yesterday at such and such a church, a lot of them are really fun stories now. I think it's both an escape from the tough stuff that's in the first section, but also just a real interesting read a lot of times to find out how couples got together.
Yeah, and I love these headlines. She really, 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 really said yes. And to be fair, also, Tom, it wasn't the Joe Blows that got into the paper, right? It was a certain section of society.
Oh, that's
now
right.
That's also changed, right? They're now recognizing other professions. It's not really who your mom and dad are or were that gets you into this section.
True, yes.
Okay, we're only another 4 hours more left of sections. Let's talk about arts and leisure.
Sure. Gilbert Cruz is the culture editor, and he's relatively new in that role. And I think he's done a wonderful job of bringing, helping the culture section evolve. None of these comments, by the way, are negative reflections on the previous editors. It's just the fact that you get a new voice in there and you bring in, a new perspective, and it just helps change the presentation and give you a little new energy to a section. I think that's a kind of natural thing that happens a lot of times. And Gilbert has a great vision for the full range of cultural experiences and who's involved in cultural kinds of things, and also kind of modern ethos in terms of how he thinks about cultural news. This was a great
photographs.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about photography at the Times? Because it's been so spectacular to see photography just celebrated in everything you all do.
Right. Well, that particular presentation is they invited I think it's 12 to 14 African American photographers, or Black photographers, I'm not sure they're all African American, to submit self-portraits that reflected to their, in their perspective, reflected something about themselves or their experience. And so that's what you're seeing there, the result of that work. These are all, professional photographers who are doing this work. So it's not just, somebody on the street doing an iPhone selfie. Photography is an enormous part of what we do, and Michelle McNally, who came in as the photo editor in the early 2000s and retired not too long ago, and now Megan Loram, who is an equally talented photo director. That they've done phenomenal work in emphasizing the news value of photography. I think our entire newsroom leadership understands and appreciates the value of photography. And I think print is a particularly great format for displaying all the great photography.
And we're seeing here, Jimmy Fallon is sorry. That's a first step. I had missed this is actually, he's apologizing for a blackface incident skit from his past when he was younger. But I thought he was going to apologize for his role in the 2016 campaign, where some people accused him of humanizing candidate Trump in a way.
I think he's already done that at some point.
Yeah, so there's a different apology.
Yeah.
All right. And then also,
yeah.
We've also seen in the paper use of illustrations, cartoons, things like that. I'm sure you get this question all the time. Why does the New York Times not carry a comic section, a regular, not Archie comics, but those kinds of comics that Doonesbury, right. As well as Calvin and Hobbes, those kinds of Beetle Bailey. Why hasn't it done it over the decades? What was the historical reason it never did those?
Oh, we've written about this a few times, and I hope I'm being correct in that. I think that the idea was that back in the day that they wanted the paper to be serious. At the turn of the century, and then even the turn of the previous century, the 1800s and early 1900s, newspapers were very, especially in New York. There was called yellow journalism, where you talk about fake news. Back then, the Pulitzers and Hearsts of the world were selling newspapers with scandalous stories that were often, way exaggerated and not true. The Times wanted to be a serious journalistic enterprise, and I believe that was the thinking behind not including comics at the time. There have been brief efforts or brief discussions occasionally about bringing comics into the paper, and for whatever reason, it's never happened. We have done, actually, coincidentally, we won a Pulitzer Prize a few years ago for a graphic for cartooning, because we did a graphic story that was that effectively qualified as for the Pulitzer cartooning competition and political cartooning, and but that was a kind of one-off. As you note, though, we are doing more and more with illustrations. I've been at the Times for I'm approaching 27 years, and when I first arrived in the early 90s, the idea of using illustrations was very much frowned on. It was very, even photography was minimal. There was, if we used a 3-column photo on the front page, it was kind of a, wow, big photo today, that really changed in the 2000s. And the other thing that changed is that the digital report has actually been responsible for opening up ideas in print, because we're doing more. You can do things with illustrations, with graphics, with all kinds of moving parts that kind of you want to be doing on digital. And then now we've figured out ways, thanks to the design talent that we have in the print group, that can translate even videos we've translated into print. We just the other day had a breakdown of the videos of the awful shooting in Atlanta, and we're able to present that in print with excerpts of the dialogue and key snap moments from the video.
Thank you. As we get ready to wind up here, we have 3 more sections. I do want to mention as someone who's read a lot of historical newspapers, this is what newspapers used to look like. There would be no text, I mean, no illustrations, no graphics, and it would all go right up to the top. There were no headlines that went across columns, right? They were like headlines like this. And
If you go,
and so this reminds me of a paper from the 1800s, 1700s.
well, in fact, the newspaper, the model for this was the paper, our coverage of the day Lincoln got shot. If you go back and look at our paper from the day Lincoln was shot, or the day after, obviously, you'll see that it looks very much like that, with the exception that, as you note, there was no banner headline. That's what we call the headline that goes all the way across the top. There was just the headline in the top of the first column. And it just, as you said, the stories just continue sort of, they just run from one column to the next with very little kind of breaks. But essentially it was because of the challenges of putting together, of putting cold type into, you had to, every line of type were pieces of metal that printers had to align. And you couldn't, it was very difficult to put in headlines in certain spots and break up pages and do kind of layout that was attractive. So you just running it all one after another, story after another, was the best way of doing it back then.
Let's do some teaching while we have this section here. I've torn out my label that came with my home address so that we won't put it on the internet like this. But it says here, all the news that's fit to print. And Tom, you and I haven't talked about this, but back in '97, when I was doing a faculty internship at the New York Times, working with Kevin McKenna on the New York Today project, back then there was some kind of context to come up with a new thing instead of all the news that's fit to print. And they decided for the digital edition, after a global contest, to stick with that slogan. I thought that was really nice. And then teach us what these numbers are and what they mean.
So volume is, the number of, each year there's a new volume, and the number is how many papers we've printed. There was a funny thing that happened in the mid to late '90s, where a news assistant, one of our clerical helpers, in doing, I can't remember what prompted him, but he discovered that we had somehow skipped a few. We had a gap, and we had to issue a correction that is one of the best corrections we've ever written, explaining that we were wrong about the number. I can't remember if it was the volume or the number. I think it was the number, but at any rate, it was a pretty funny and self-effacing correction.
And what do you call this?
That's called a weather ear, and that's because ear because it's to the side of the head, and we have a different. We have papers printed in 25 locations around the country, including our main local plant in College Point, Queens, and we have a different ear for each of those printing locations, because obviously if you're in Chicago, your weather is going to be different than your weather in New York and so forth. So we have a different, quick forecast for each region.
And I want to tell you that even with every piece of electronic equipment I have, I still look at this. It's still helpful in the middle of everything else to have this. And I just stuck by that. There's something about print that still matters.
It's funny. We do reader surveys, and every once in a while people say, do people really look at the paper to get the weather forecast? And whenever we do a survey like that, we find, and what they do is they'll ask someone to look at the paper and study how they look at it. And people go to that first so many times. It's kind of amazing.
Okay.
Great note from Linda Lawrence, if I can comment on that.
Yes,
Thank
please.
you for she says she just placed an order for Weekend Print after being a digital subscriber for years. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we're doing them one sale at a time for you, Tom. This is the way the New York Times will stop failing. It'll come on and sell one subscriber at a time. Sunny Slaughter, our guest on multiple shows, says, thank you, Tom, for sharing your wealth of knowledge, perspective, and evolution in the history of the print of the New York Times. I would have never learned this without the New York Times read along and the experts like you. Most Black people don't get to have this level of engagement and truth. Wow, very, very special. Thank you, Tom, and I hope this justifies your time with us. Just this one single comment here.
It definitely does. That's incredibly meaningful, as are a lot of these comments, frankly.
And she says she would not have had this level of engagement and truth in print. So that's really important. And a nice job, just says Joan Nasivera. Nice job, Tom Jolly. Nice job, Tom Jolly, she says. And Roberta says, love this show. And she's a subscriber in Virginia. You have 7-day subscribers all over the world who aren't, or at least in America. Can you get it? Still 7 days after the New York Times International Edition? Is it still available everywhere?
Yeah, the international edition is still published. We have an office in Hong Kong, and they put together the international paper, and it's available most places in the world.
Great. Quickly, let's go through this real estate section. What do you have to share about this?
So real estate, just for the benefit of your reader or your viewers who are around the country and around the world, real estate is only published in the New York edition, as is the case with the Metropolitan section. The content, those two sections are focused on New York real estate, and New York real granular New York news. We do publish 2 pages of New York news. We expand the A-book on Sunday in the national edition to include 2 pages of metropolitan news for readers outside of New York, and we do the same with real estate, putting in a little bit of real estate news into the national edition. But those 2 sections are only available in the New York area.
That's great. Stefan says, a shout out to all the old composing room crew at the New York Times, whom I used to work with. These type and layout artists used to wear these little tool pouches that carried these little X-Acto type of tools to cut out the lettering for the type and laid out print memories. And I want to say, Tom, you arranged for another life highlight. One was coming to your house and reading the paper with you, but you arranged for us to visit Mike Connors at the printing plant. And we did a live New York Times read along at 9 p.m. on a Wednesday night. And it was unbelievable to be in the print section, in the printing plant, and take those to bring that all to everybody around the world. People were so excited.
Yeah, I got to say, I think people maybe, through this pandemic and the realization that people are working in these printing plants and doing this work has helped with people recognizing the importance of that element of the business. But those guys are huge partners in what we do. As I referenced earlier, we stopped the presses on Friday night, and I saw someone asked me to talk a little bit more about that on a comment that came by earlier. But Mike Connors is the guy that we contact when we do that. It's an unusual thing, and it's funny because if you watch the movies, it's a very dramatic moment, and I'm always a little sheepish to disappoint people that it's not that dramatic in real life. In fact, the first time I heard it happen was, I believe it was when Richard Nixon died around 1994, and we got word of his death. And Bob Sheridan, who was the editor in charge of the newsroom editor who was overseeing the report in the composing room, picked up the phone and just said, "We got to stop the presses. Nixon died." And that was, and I said, "That's it? That's all? You don't shout, stop the presses?" And he said, "Sorry."
Look at Sonny saying. Sonny says, "I love Mike Connors, wishing him a happy Father's Day. I'm coming to visit him in the plant when this is over. He's the best." And Mike and Sonny connected over the read along, and that's what we love, people connecting this way. Renee Edelman says, "We love the print edition of the New York Times. Thanks, Tom." And Debbie Bernick has a play on the old Virginia tourism ad campaign, "Virginia is for lovers," and she says Virginia is for New York Times lovers like us. And that's great. And so many different comments coming in. Deanna says, "I love the print paper edition. thanks, and happy Father's Day. I also want to make a comment for anyone who feels this is all about celebrating such a successful enterprise in the New York Times. The New York Times runs print ads asking people to subscribe to other local newspapers. Unheard of to even think that. Why do you do that, Tom?
Well, it's become it's no secret. Journalism is challenged. You jokingly have said failing New York Times, but in fact, there are a lot of failing news organizations around the country, small newspapers and other publications, weekly publications, etc. And democracy really does depend on journalism in this country and around the world. I mean, if think of all of the times that local officials are called to task or questioned by newspapers, and it's the kind of one of the principles of journalism is giving voice to the voiceless. And if you live in a town where you don't have a newspaper, and unfortunately there are more and more of those towns, and larger and larger of those towns that don't have newspapers, you worry about what that invites in terms of, in the deepest way, corruption of some sort, but also just not having you're pretty much turning everything over to your trust in the town leaders and losing the ability to raise questions. You don't have people. One of the things journalists do is they're focused on raising questions for government officials, and without journalism, you don't have people doing that in a way that's routine and has some level of expertise.
Thank you. Very well put. Terry says democracy depends on journalism, and that's so true. Paula says this is one of my favorite links to share. Thank you. She's linking to the support local journalism link that you all put out there, and that's, I think, a great gesture on part, and it's actually helping bring attention to this particular issue. We want to let you go because we know you have Father's Day with Sawyer and all the other things you need to do on a Sunday. Just give us a little more color about how you're feeling today about the Times and your role in it and where you think this is all going.
I'm really excited about the future of the Times. We continue to push to find new ways to tell stories. We continue to push to bring more voices into what we're doing and reaching into more areas of coverage. Just going through the paper today, you can see as you mentioned in the wedding section, it used to be about the powerful and the connected, and in some ways that was also true of the coverage that we focused on. And I think more and more we're moving away from exclusively that and looking to really get at the story on the culture wars in church as an example of how we're really pushing hard to get to the roots of the challenges in our culture right now. It's a time that's, we've never seen anything like this, given the ability to communicate in both good ways and bad on social media. Social media can be a great thing for good, but it can also be a terribly challenging thing in bringing bad people together, right? And sharing negativity. And so we're going to have to solve that. And the Times is, really committed to digging into those issues.
Thank you, Tom. So many people are still commenting. We won't have time to get into all of this. And one of the requests I made to world newspapers at the onset of the pandemic, my dad says, was that they make reading of their papers free. Has the New York Times made concessions on the paywall? And the answer I know, so please tell us.
Well, we did make we dropped the paywall for coverage of the coronavirus stories. So we if any story was related to coronavirus, you were able to access that for free, and still are.
So that's good news for my dad and others who love the paper and want to read more of it. And with so many other comments coming in from around the world. So Tom, we're going to let you go. What are the plans for Sunday at the Jolly household?
We're going to take it easy. It's a beautiful day. I'm sure it is on Fire Island as well. And so I'm going to try to enjoy the day and do a little barbecuing later. Got some ribs thawed out. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. A nice relaxing day in the sun.
Well, you've earned it. Sunny says, Happy Father's Day, Tom. Be safe, well, and thank you for being a storyteller of history. And that's a great way to think about you on this day. And please say hello to Sawyer for us. For those who missed the early part of this, Sawyer is his daughter who hosted us along with Tom at the not at the New York Times, at his home out in New Jersey. Neil and I got to drive out and spend some time with Tom and read the paper with him last August. And Sawyer was a wonderful addition to the read along. She participated. Linda says, thanks for a great session today. She's got to leave, but folks, don't leave. We're going to do the Father's Day greetings for all the folks who sent in those opportunities to say hello to their fathers and father figures. So Tom, we'll let you go. Thank you very much. Everyone follow Tom Jolly on Twitter because, among other things, he tweets out the print edition front page of the paper the night before. I don't know if you're the first to do that inside the paper every day, but you're certainly the one that I read every day.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think I'm the first. I was the first to start doing that. We're sort of picking our spots to do it now, but I know it in Europe they do it more frequently, so we sort of followed that.
Thank you. And Ellen says that was a terrific session. Thanks. Thank you to all. So we're very grateful. Tom, we'll let you go. Thank you, and we hope you'll come back in the future.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Happy Father's Day to you.
Happy Father's Day. Thank you. And thank you all for watching. We're now going to bring in the various greetings that people sent us as part of this promotion. We asked Tom to pick one particular charity, and he picked the Unusual Suspects, an organization that helps with promoting the value of theater inside and dealing with young kids, including troubled kids. And it was just very nice that we're able to send some money after this project today. So we had 2 shows every Sunday, the 8:30 a.m. and the 9 p.m. show. And the 8:30 p.m. AM show, we're going to show a bunch of these. And then we're going to show all of these, plus new ones that come in by 5 p.m. Eastern. Neil, let's show that card again so people can see and know what we're doing.
Absolutely. It's a great promotion. Thank you again to everyone who has participated. Here is the promotional card, again, for both the New York Times Read Along and the Shri COVID-19 call, tonight's edition at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We will show a picture that you submit and a message to thank a father figure, a grandfather, uncle, male role model for Father's Day. You can submit your information at digimentors.link/Father's Day and upload your picture there. And we started the show. We showed the ones from my father and for Shree's father as well. And again, we showed the website for the charity that Tom supports. We can show that again real quick, just so folks know where that money will be going. It's the Unusual Suspects Theater Company, and it was formed, as Tom mentioned, after the LA riots. This is something that his daughter is got close to, Melissa Peterman, who is involved with this nonprofit. They do some great work. So please check them out at theunusualsuspects.org. You can see their vision of the Unusual Suspects Theater Company is a world where all youth are given the opportunities and support they need to succeed. Certainly a worthy cause. With that, Shri, I think that we can go in to sharing the rest of our Father's Day cards.
And we want to remind everyone that if you see these and you like them, we're going to do the entire run again this evening. And we'll also add any new ones that come in by 5 p.m. Eastern. So just go to digimentors.link/Father's Day and find out more. And let's get started.
Absolutely. So,
I should say the reason we're going to do this as fast as we can is that, as you know, Neil, that our Digimentors company is executive producing a spin-off show from this. She's on Call, and that's going to be at 11 a.m. Eastern. So I have to go get ready on the other side and produce the show. So we are, this is last week's poster, but this week at 11 a.m. we have two new guests. We're going to be with Dr. Sujana and Dr. Marina. So the main headline is that's the name of the show. She's on Call. Follow on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube at She's on Call, and you can see the video right there. You can also see it on my channels. I'll be resharing as it does everybody. But She's on Call, 11 a.m. Eastern. Two surgeons talking to other doctors, and it's just fabulous that we have female representation in that way in a profession where we often see only male doctors on media. We now get to see so many great female doctors as well. So let's start on the Father's Day promos.
So I'll read a couple, Shri, and then I'll hand over to you to read a couple. So I'll start. The first one is a happy Father's Day to Howard Cabot. Thank you for being an incredible role model to all of us, the Cabot kids and grandkids, Heather, Neeraj, Melissa, Courtney, Adam, Tyler, Ileana, Sam, Ian, Penelope, and Alex. And apologies in advance if we mispronounce any of these names, but thank you again for submitting them. We have another one from Jenny Lazarus. Happy Father's Day to Jason, the best dad out there who makes every day so much fun. Thank you for making us laugh and for resolving all our tech tickets every day. Love, Jenny, Brooke, and Brett. You want to take the next two, Shri?
Sure. Happy Father's Day to my amazing dad, as well as to my younger brother, who also has been an excellent father to my young nephews, and to many, many great fathers from Mark Lee. Mark is a great friend of the show, and many of you saw his comments as well, from Durham, North Carolina. Happy Father's Day to Cookie, the man who has given me every valuable lesson I will ever need. Thank you for continuing to teach me every day. I love you, Jenny. And that's Jenny Lazarus, who's part of our Digimentors team.
And I'll do the next two. Happy Father's Day to Bruce, a wonderful and inspiring dad who took care of families for 30 years as a physician and brought over 7,000 babies into the world. Much love from Carl, also known as Middle C. I'll also note that this picture was taken in front of Nationals Park in DC. I can respect another baseball fan. The next one that I'll read out is from our very own Paula Kiger. In gratitude for my father, C.B. Rucker, and her husband, Wayne. That's a picture, presumably, of her father and her on the bike, thinking of all the people missing their fathers and father figures today. Thank you, Paula, for that heartfelt message. And as you did on Mother's Day as well, recognizing that not everyone is with their fathers this year.
I know, Neil, you're thinking of your dad as well, and he has helped bring us together in this special way around this special read-along, New York Times read-along family.
Thanks. Here's another two for you.
Happy Father's Day to the two best dads, Ed and Mohan. We love you so much. Thanks for all you do. Prarthna and Cyrus are sending this in, and this is my cousin, Prarthna, and my dear uncle, Mohan, and this is her husband, Ed, and their son, Cyrus. Great picture and a great way to connect her dad as well as her husband on Father's Day. They're sleeping in California, so they'll see the evening edition and see all the ads. And folks, if you missed our deadline, you will be in the 9 p.m. edition of the New York Times Read Along. It's going to be an epic evening edition because my twins, Krishna and Durga, 17-year-olds, are going to share their views on what's happening in the world. And I know you're going to learn a lot. I'm going to learn a lot from just talking to them. So please join us 9 p.m. Eastern for my daily COVID-19 show. Happy Father's Day to an amazing dad and husband. Love, Rose, Simone, Andrew, Nathan, and David. And this is our own Rose Horowitz saying hello to Alan. We love this. This is just a great picture of their family. And Rose is part of our Digimentors team.
So for this next one, Shri, I'll let you take this one since this is family.
Yes, to the world's best father, Sri Srinivasan. This is Srikant, my younger brother, getting a greeting from his wonderful wife Sharavati and their son Shivai. And love this photograph. They live in Dubai, and I would have seen them now. I already saw them before lockdown twice this year, and I would have seen them another 3 times or 4 times, and I've not because of the lockdown. So I'm thinking of you. Love you very much. To all my family and every dad in the family and everyone who's a dad to me in the family, in addition to my dad.
Thank you, Shri. And so I'll take this next one again. We prerogative for family. My mom submitted this one. Happy Father's Day to D.N. Tolia, her father, my grandfather, Mortabai, as everyone called him. He read the Times of India every day and listened to BBC News. He was a very loving and intelligent person, and he spent many years in Myanmar, living in what used to be called Burma before moving back to India. From Sudha Parekh, and may his memory be a blessing.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I spent 3-4 years in Burma myself with my parents when my dad was posted there, and that's beautiful to see Prakash and Sudha as younger folks. And are you in that photo as well?
I am in that photo. I'll go back to it.
Let's see young Neil. Look at that.
My dad in the back, and I'm in the foreground on the right-hand side, and that's my sister Amy in the on the bottom left corner.
Lovely.
So Amy was born. So I'm guessing this was taken in 81, 80 or 81 is my guess. But yeah, thank you for that. So go ahead. You'll take the next 2.
Happy Father's Day to Pat Taylor from Steve Taylor. Steve on our team at Steve DeReeve. And Steve is a wonderful part of our Digimentors family, like all our team members. And I love this picture. And what I'm connecting this to is the fact that I have pictures of Steve on my balcony. And now here he is on a balcony with his dad somewhere in the world. And that's awesome.
And then this next one.
To our Appa, Dad, Chandi Tata and Rama Tata from Sujana, Keval, Kedar, Sajan, and Sarika with love. Happy Father's Day to H.K. Chandrasekhar, Chris Ramanathan, and Krishna Ramanathan. Thank you for always being there and always supporting our dreams. Beautiful note from Sujana Chandrasekhar, one of our 2 doctors and host and co-executive producer of She's on Call, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern. So in about 30-40 minutes, please join us to see this wonderful doctor show that we're launching. And I love this photo of her husband, Chris, with her dad, and to Krishna Ramanathan as well. So wonderful, wonderful photograph.
And what was nice is that I actually knew her dad. My mom tells me that Sujana and I actually knew each other when we were kids. So that was an interesting connection to share. So for this next one, Shri, I'm gonna put this on the screen, and I want to see your reaction. This is from Sunny Slaughter, and this is really meaningful. Happy Father's Day to my 5 brothers: Ahmad Ward, Sri Srinivasan, Martin Weinberg, Neil Parekh, and Ron Thomas. Thank you for being men of courage, character, and dignity. Love, Sunny Slaughter. That just it floored me when I saw that, and Sunny, I couldn't thank you enough. I put on the screen, I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that we first met Sunny when she was a special guest on the 1619 Project, special edition of the New York Times read-along, and has joined us several times since, and most recently after the killing of George Floyd. Sunny, thank you for being part of the New York Times read-along family. I'm so proud to call you a friend and a supporter.
And thank you so much, Sunny. I'm just stunned by this. You folks, you should know Sunny paid money to run this ad when we would have obviously not wanted her to pay money to do this, and to spend that money to say something nice about us. That tells you something about her spirit. She was on, if you haven't seen the 2 episodes, the most recent time she's been with us, one was on the New York Times read along right before we brought in Nobel laureate Joe Stiglitz, who listened to every word she had to say and commented about how great those words were. And then before that, she was on the Daily COVID show. I brought her on to talk about what is going on with the everything happening with the George Floyd killing. And she said something that I've never forgotten. She said, a lot of people are going to their Black friends and saying, what can I do now? And she said, don't ask, what can you do now? Ask, what have you been doing? And I'm proud to say that Neil and I and our Digimentors family have done some things, but not enough. And we'll keep pushing to make sure we cover and help in any tiny way we can spread some light and understanding about what's happening with racial inequality in this country. Sujana says Sunny wins, and Sunny does in this case. Everyone, please go back and watch those episodes. They were among the best pieces of journalism that I've been ever associated with in my life, and I'm always grateful. Paula says, oh my goodness, this is so touching, Sunny Slaughter. Thank you. And we are pointing out to her work, and she's on Twitter, Sunny_Slaughter. Please follow her and the work that she's doing. One of the things, Neil, that I've always said is that we need to have folks on television, on the media of all persuasions, all backgrounds, and we don't cover or invite African-American folks here to talk about so-called African-American issues. We have them on to talk about sports. We have them on to talk about tech. We have them on to talk about American issues. And that's why when we had, the CEO of March of Dimes, for example, she happened to be African-American. Last night, I did a whole session on careers after COVID-19, career tips. Our guest happened to be Black, and she was not talking about career tips for Black folks. She was talking about career tips for everybody. And that's what I want to see more on television. People being invited for their expertise, not just for who they are. Who they are matters, as we saw with Tom Jolly, to hear his personality and his being a father. All of that matters. But it's the expertise that we want to showcase on this show, as we were able to do on that show. We had a triple threat. We had Sunny, we had Joe Stiglitz, the Nobel laureate, and we had Dr. Mona Abaza on that same show. That's the expertise we show off on this show. Sunny says, Martin Weinberg is the civil rights attorney in Birmingham in my family. Ahmad Ward, I'm sorry, I just missed that.
Right.
Ahmad Ward is the executive director of the historic Mitchellville Preservation. So thank you, Sunny, and let's see some more cards.
Absolutely. And there are so many. There's several more to go through. But continuing that stretch, I want to thank Patricia Freudenberg. She had a special message she wanted to share. Happy Father's Day to all the dads who passed away, especially during this novel coronavirus time. May your legacy and loving spirits live on forever, and may they rest in heavenly peace. May their memories be a blessing as well. Patricia, thank you so much for being such a loyal watcher and for sharing that message.
She bought an ad. I'll just go back to that. She bought an ad to say something about other people's family. I love that. And she also did a Mother's Day ad. And everyone know that half the proceeds are going to go directly into this great charity selected by our friend Tom Jolly. And you should also know that part of the reason we're doing this, Neil and I doing this, and the Mother's Day card as well, is that we want to learn about how to get revenue streams in the work that we do. And we're testing and understanding this, and that's why we're doing it. It's not a lot of money compared to what we could be doing. We spend hours formatting the cards, getting the pictures. We're doing that so that we can learn, and also contributing to charity in this case. So we're learning what persuades people to give money to something like membership and other things we're exploring. And we just love that you all reacted so well. Give us your feedback to this. Write it on the screen right now, or email me, sri@sri.net. I want to hear more about this, as I am learning what works in the world of business. So let's keep going on to our next card.
Just as you're mentioning that, one, using Canva to do the cards makes a big difference. And also, we're using a form called Jotform, Jotform. Feel free to check it out. Again, we're experimenting with different ways to submit information, and that's the one. It seems to work better than Google Forms. in terms of making it easier for people to upload pictures.
And I will say that anyone who wants to collaborate on these going forward, anyone has any other ideas on topics for which we could do them. We talked about doing one for graduation, but we may have missed the boat on that this year. But these are all things we're learning. So down the road, we'll do more of these as the situations warrant. So let's keep going.
Absolutely. So Renee Edelman, happy Father's Day, Papa. You're my hero. And may Dan's memory be a blessing as well. Thank you, Renee, for your support.
Let me say about Dan Edelman. That is
please.
Dan Edelman, who went down to found the world's largest independent PR company. It's Edelman Worldwide, that many of you know. He's also a fellow alum of Columbia Journalism School, as is Renee, both of them. And I had the pleasure of helping inaugurate Daniel Edelman Plaza at Columbia Journalism School, and I got to meet Daniel multiple occasions, and Renee and Richard Edelman, CEO of the company Edelman Worldwide.
So I'm going to let you do the next two, Shri.
Happy Father's Day to Srihari Pillai from Rukmini Pillai. This is my wonderful little niece in India, and her father, Srihari, from my cousin Radhika. And just love this photograph here. Just awesome. Happy Father's Day to TP Sitaram and Navneet Sitaram from Deepa, Navneet, Cami, Odell, Devi, Manisha, and Sufawadi. This is one of my favorite families in the world because they happen to be my family. And that's my very young uncle, Sitaram, who's now a retired Indian ambassador. And I can't believe that tells you how old I am, that my uncle, who's always been my baby uncle, is now a retired and a grandfather himself. I love these pictures, and I'm seeing them after a long time. Awesome, awesome stuff.
I'll pick up the next two. Happy Father's Day to Alfred Anthony from Bob, Robert Anthony, a friend of our show, friend of Shree's. Since my father's birthday often fell on Mother's Day, it's only fair that my mother share Father's Day, and may their memories be a blessing as well. We have.
I would say that about Bob Anthony, who's been a guest on our show multiple times, including our 100th episode yesterday. 2 nights ago. He told us all about his father, who worked for the MTA transit system, and was just so meaningful to hear about the work that folks like him, are doing right now. The transit workers, our heroes, all these essential workers, as we call them.
And go ahead, Shri.
So you gave me the one with the name, only tougher names than my own. So we will say Happy Father's Day to Rahadyan's father. And he and I, Rahadyan, we're going to connect between now and 9 p.m. So I'm going to pronounce this absolutely right at 9 p.m. Eastern. This is Papa and me in late 1963. We had a challenging relationship, but I'm happy we forgave each other before he died in December 2018. I love you, Papa. What a beautiful message and a great photograph of Rahadyan with his father. Thank you, Rahadyan, for sending this in, and I hope your family gets to see this. Much love to you and your family.
And Rahadyan, I want to offer my thank you as well, and also just for being so honest about your relationship with your father and how difficult that must have been. So thank you for sharing that with us. We really appreciate your candor with that. More family, Shri.
Yes, happy Father's Day to PV Natarajan from Lakshmi, Manju Natarajan, and Kailash Amator, and our daughters Shaila and Shriya. As a child, I adored you. As a teenager, I argued with you. As an adult, I enjoyed you. Now, as a mother, I'm forever grateful to you. Thank you for a lifetime of laughter, life lessons, and unconditional love. I can't wait to see you soon. Beautiful picture, and she really understands what we're trying to do with this read along. Well done, Manju. Very proud of you for so many reasons, but now this as well. Well done.
And so now we'll alternate. We just have a few more left. I'll do this one, and I'll give you the next one to read. First, Happy Father's Day to Sharmaji from Ashok Sharma. Ashok Sharma's father was a great leader, a social worker who was a Gandhian communist, I believe in Kerala, India. So thank you for that, Ashok. And then Shri, I'm going to have you read this one.
Happy Father's Day to Neil Parekh from Pam and Emily. Thank you for being a great dad, even if you think being a Yankee fan is a part of Emily's ethnic background. I just love this. A great photo of you at Yankee Stadium. This is new Yankee Stadium, and just love seeing this picture and seeing all those people together. And we think about where life is going and where the world is going. But Emily was a great guest on my daily program, COVID-19 show. We talked about what life from the point of view of a 7-year-old. So please check out that show in the archives, youtube.com/Srinet to see the entire archives.
And for background, when she was younger, I was able to convince her to say that her background is Indian, Italian, Assyrian, and a Yankee fan. I had that at equal footing. At some point, my wife broke the news to her that being a Yankee fan is not an ethnicity. I still hold out hope that I can convince her otherwise as we go. I think she'll probably say it again just to humor me at some point. But for the last one we have, Shri, I'm going to read this one out real quick. And again, I'm going to go to sharing my screen. It's another special one. Dear Papa, we are so awed by the number of lives you are able to touch, connect, and inspire every single day. Your strength and courage invigorates us, and we are so grateful that you've instilled your spirit and joy in us. You have encouraged us to pursue what we love, and we will forever be cheering you on through all your endeavors as you change the world. We love you more than anything, Durga, Krishna, and Tara.
Tara got in there too. I love this picture, and I love that they did this. I love you all. I'm so grateful to all of you for participating. In fact, my twins put their own pocket money into this, and I'm so grateful. I also want to do a big shout out to my father-in-law, their grandfather, their other grandfather, K.V. Unnikrishnan. We're going to be paying tribute to a whole bunch of other people tonight at the 9 p.m. show, when these two twins are going to be our guests on the show at 9 p.m. Eastern. So please join us then. We're going to have many more cards that will be read. Please, you can participate by going to digimentors.link/Father's Day right now, buying an ad and letting us know so that we can read these cards out tonight. And of course, you can clip the little video and you can make sure that we connect all over the world tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern. And now I got to go and produce our show. I got to play your role over on She's on Call as you spend time with Emily and Pam.
And just as a reminder, Shri mentioned the 9 p.m. show. Again, that's the Father's Day Positivity Show, featuring Durga Srinivasan and Krishna Srinivasan as the guests, Shri's 17-year-old twins. So please make sure to join us for that show. And with that, we will end the New York Times Read Along. Thank you again for joining us, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.